Thank you for staying with us, and we talk about something that is really affecting all of us, the state of road accidents. And it's all about the Drive Safe campaign. Road accidents have been increasing despite several campaigns to halt the worrying trend. And that's why we have our guests who will be joining me for a discussion this morning. But right before we do that, let's delve into the real picture when it comes to the road accident situation. If you look at it, we have so far seen some 1,250 people who have died from January to the ended month of May. In less than 6 months, that is 5 months actually. That's the number right there, 1,250 people who have actually lost their lives. Then you look at the representation, and this actually represents a 26.32% rise from last year's statistics. So year on year, you would realize that we are not making the progress we seek. And the question is why? My guests will be answering that shortly. We also note that 1,309 persons have been injured in May 2021 alone. Note that is just 1 month we're speaking of, representing a 26.7% rise. And maybe finally, to paint the picture, 538 people have died from motorcycle accidents since January. That's the number to take stock of, 538, while 2,089 people have been injured through motorcycle accidents. That is the real state of, the road traffic situation, the accidents we've been facing in this country. And the question remains how we can resolve the situation. That is why we have joining us in the studio this morning our guest, Engineer David Adonting, Director of Planning and Programs with the National Road Safety Authority. We also have Superintendent Alex Obeng, who is Head of Education, Research and Training with the Ghana Police MTTD. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning.
Let me start with you, Supo, and I'll start from this end. It has been a very gory picture as far as this year is concerned and road accidents. I was just reading of this one recently, and I'll draw your attention to it. It's not something I believe you have missed. So there has been a recent accident including of 3 people dying, including a 2-year-old girl who were killed in an accident at Soko on the Titrim-Buaman Motor Road in the Efija-Kwabre North of district of the Ashanti region. 6 others are receiving treatment and all of that. And the commander of the MTTD in the Ashanti region has been responding. That has been the tale. This is one of the most recent ones we have seen. Of all the efforts, the campaigns and everything, we seem to be making no strides. Why is that?
Thank you for opportunity offered to
If you could speak up a bit, Supo.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity offered. And good morning to you too. I think there's hope.
There's hope.
We have majority on our side. And it is also obvious that as human beings and as a society, we have myriad of challenges, and one of such is this road safety problem that is confronting us under discussion this morning. And I'm hopeful because it is at the front burner of media houses, and these are being discussed with the view that it will be within the horizon and people will be aware, and that is where solutions are preferred and perplexing issues solved. And in the past, road safety was not a fanciful thing to anybody, but currently we have series of interventions, including recent past, and it's also ongoing, Arrive Alive, and the one that we are talking about now, among other countermeasures, that some are physical, some are other projects that seeks to advocate that seeks to inculcate best practices to change behavior of road users to improve safety. And it is also telling us that there are certain mistakes that as a country we have made, and moving on with what is confronting us, we will not repeat such mistakes because...
What are some of those mistakes?
Yeah, it's obvious. For example, all the time, if you look at Ghana, for example, Ghana has been accused internationally, locally, that there seems to be laxity among the state agencies, and in particular, certain interventions that the state needs to bring about in terms of deploying certain investment deliverables. For example, how long since 1957 that we will continue to have single carriages on our transit routes in these jurisdictions. And we look at it, and in recent time, it's confronting us that from here to Kumasi, for example, because it's a contra-flow route or single carriage, traffic congestion has been a diurnal challenge to motorists, to the extent that around the clock, you observe that there's heavy traffic on many sections of this N6 from Accra to Kumasi than on Accra busy roads. And no wonder you see a lot of people driving on the shoulders and creating problem, head-on collision here and there. And that is a typical of how can you sit down for about 60 years? We will look at this road that is feeding the economy, that is ensuring socio-economic development of this country and West Africa.
So that's a failure right there.
That is obvious. And therefore, when you begin to see a country quickly rising up and saying, oh, I've awarded a contract for the dualization of the road from Accra to Aflao, for example, from Accra to Winneba, and then from Accra to Kumasi, we are dualizing it. It tells you of the laxity that existed, and all of a sudden you are working from a slumber. And that itself comes with a price.
Right, and that is part of the price we are seeing now. We're paying.
We're going to see, and apart from the laxity on the side of there are also that we keep on talking about, which is tried when you're looking at road safety issues in the world. The human challenges, the frailty of man that manifests itself in the way that when you look at the data of road crash and you make attribution, you observe that you can only attribute maybe 4% to vehicle and road. The rest, you are looking at the human behavior that fights against safe practices that the law seeks to regulate, including unsafe use of vehicles, unsafe use of our road, unsafe deployment of vehicles on our roads, and all these manifest itself in speeding and long collusion, driving tired.
So you've identified some of the problems, and as we have this discussion, we'll also have to identify some of the solutions. We're not here to regurgitate the,
but within
the solutions.
Within the
problems
that are, it communicates clearly the countermeasures.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about.
It does, and we'll get to that briefly. Engineer Adonting, thank you for joining the conversation as well. As Supo spoke, he made mention of two things that I kept in mind, that people are becoming more aware of the situation in terms of the road carnage, and that we are talking about it like we're doing this morning on the show. But people have become aware, and we've kept speaking about it, but the numbers keep going up in terms of road accident statistics, the casualty statistics, the injury statistics. You just saw me on the board.
Yes.
You know, it's moving from bad to worse. Look at the situation when it comes to motorcycle accidents, month on month. Looking at that, we're not making a headway. Why is that? From the standpoint of the National Road Safety Authority and beyond, why are we not making a headway?
Yeah, good morning, and thank you very much for this opportunity. I must say that anytime I come into contact with multimedia, all of you, I say thank you once again because of the Arrive Alive and now the Drive Safe campaign together. We are making a lot of headway in road safety, particularly, as you said, we are achieving a certain aim. The aim is that you have a lot more people talking about safety now. Previously, you hardly come across, it's either politics or something else. But now you see road safety in the limelight. At the forefront, we are all speaking about it. Perhaps negatively, because the statistics are going up. But let us say that without what you and I are doing, the police is doing, and all the other stakeholders, the situation would have been worse. Because the challenges confronting every country, not only in Ghana, across the world, road safety is a big issue. It's a very complex issue. To the extent that globally, it used to be 1.25 million people dying averagely annually. Now it's hitting 1.35 million, which means that the whole world is even confronted with that challenge. But we have all come very far discussing the problems. And I like it when we meet and say, now going forward, what do? We have identified all the problems. He just said it. One is about the indiscipline. Indeed, the underlying principle is the number of vehicles that are rising. Now Ghana is hitting far beyond the limits of 2.2 million vehicles across the country, running every day. The population is also growing, about 30 million, and very soon there's going to be a population census. And I can bet you that it will be more than 30 million.
Very quickly, do you think that is a problem? I ask from the standpoint of, I mean, you go to the likes of Brazil, you go to some of the Sao Paulo, Rio, and the traffic can be, I mean, you can be in it for hours. Why aren't we addressing the situation? Because in other countries' jurisdictions, even here,
that's what I'm coming.
Burkina Faso,
that's what I'm coming.
Motorbikes, bicycles, and all of that. We don't have that.
Now, in spite of identifying the problems, now having the forefront discussing it, it is one thing doing that, and the other thing is doing. The word is doing, acting. It won't come by miracle or by magic. For road safety, there has to be interventions. If you intervene, then the intervention will inure on the benefits of safety. There are 4 ways that we always say that when it comes to road safety management, we can put together to make sure that we get the kind of safety we want. The advocacy is high in Ghana. I can completely and confidently say that we're on top when it comes to advocacy, education, and so on. But the other complementary efforts, he just said it, road infrastructure. What is it? It is quite recently that we saw that I think the Ministry of Roads and Highways is scaling up, coming up with some dualization programs. Well, it's been too long. We should have gone very far.
As much as I agree with you, and it's true because you're riding on a rough road with a lot of potholes and the rest.
And you expect safety?
The propensity for accidents is high. But there's also been that horrifying statistic where in some roads that have been well tarred, asphalted, and the rest. So there are still accidents there. I think is it the Kintampo Strait?
So
you see that as well.
Even if the roads are provided, then it is up to us, the individuals. So should now comply with the rules and regulations as provided by the law. So we are talking about the indiscipline. The level of indiscipline in Ghana is growing. And so when you see figures like this, don't be overwhelmed. Go and see on our highways how people are behaving. People would want to speed as if they are flying. They want to overtake 10 vehicles in front of them. Is it perhaps one would say it's not their fault because that is what they see. But even if our roads are single carriageways, like he's saying, we are the human beings. We should know better. We should know what is risky and don't get ourselves into that risk. And so as individuals, if we are not responsible and we do not want to take that opportunity of National Road Safety Authority, the police and the rest talking to you and advising you, and you go and do your own thing disregarding the rules and the regulations, these are the things you see. So I am saying that we have to be responsible as individuals. Whoever happens
how do we bring about that responsibility apart from some of what?
So once we have spoken about the education, the advocacy, then it tells on my good friends, the police, to be out there. So that whoever becomes recalcitrant, as we advise, as we teach, as we direct you, and you fail to comply with the rules and the regulations, then you must be punished. And this is where I expect my good friends to come in with all modern ways of apprehending, identifying traffic offenders and dealing with them. Because that is where we are now. It is the duty of the police now to go out there and wage war against indiscipline. And I think this is the time. Whatever means police can do, use every gadget. And now it's even ICT across the world. You don't find police going to stand one-on-one on the sun and apprehend traffic offenders. You can't. Because the kind of vehicles people are using now, the Hondas and the Volvos and so on, the Jeeps and so on, you cannot chase them. It takes technology, cameras, to identify them and apprehend them and deal with them.
And very few of our traffic areas or major. Areas actually are fitted with
Yes.
those. But let me come back to you, Supo. And it's interesting, maybe this goes to both of you, because from the National Road Safety Authority standpoint as well, you feed in. I've noticed that especially with, guidance on the lights, the street signals, green meaning go, red meaning stop, and of course, amber. My focus is on amber because a lot of the time people feel it's amber, I can still go through. But if you look at the timing, I don't know whether it's a second or two between amber and red. And I've also come to notice that quite a lot of the accidents we are seeing, you'd see that people are trying to go through the amber light. I've witnessed one before, horrifying accident with about 3 vehicles involved. What is the teaching? What are we doing when it comes to speaking to people about the fact that when it's amber, you actually need to be getting ready to stop, unless you are going at a certain speed that you cannot stop, which wouldn't be warranted anyway. What do you feel we should be doing in that?
I think that people should take a cue. If they haven't watched, they should rush to Kwame Boateng's Crashed documentary. And adequate information, evidence-based, real-time incidents on our roads in Ghana were captured with police cameras. They were stored and were given out for him to run that documentary, to bring it to the homes of Ghanaians to know that, or as Road Safety Authority have been talking about, as we were taught, one hazardous areas on our road is junction, whether it is crossroad and Y junction, T junction, and whether it is signalized with traffic lights, amber, green and red, or not. It is one of the most dangerous places that drivers in the process of acquiring their license are also taught. And we expect that there will be self-compliance, because most of the crashes that are happening at those junctions, particularly in police urban jurisdiction. And it's the reason why in the road law we look at regulation 106, rules of the road. Apart from the fact that we are regulated to drive on the right side, on our town roads we are expected not to move above, in certain places, 50 kilometers per hour, and other places below 30 kilometers per hour.
And part of the problem would be that in some of these locations, we don't even have the proper signages to guide people. That is part of the problem.
And I'm coming to that we are instructed, and a license holder, and I'm reading this one together with Regulation 163, general speed behavior that are inculcated in drivers, that when you get to where places are built up with buildings, where people live, it can be city, it can be town, it can be hamlet, it can be cottage. So for us, there are these landmarks, constructed artifacts. It is incumbent on the driver to slow to these speeds, in these areas, whether the signs are posted or not. The sign that you expect to see are people living there, and every driver is aware of this. And it's same on city roads. But what do we see? We are instructed that when you are approaching these places, slow down, particularly at junctions too, and more so in these city town road junctions. There are signals, and we expect driver to stop when it is amber. Please listen. When it is amber or when it is red. But what we are seeing, I think it's becoming a global attitude among drivers. That anytime you see amber, and then it tells them to speed, they are supposed to stop. And that's the problem we have, that now people are rushing to cross amber lights. And that is one of the most dangerous behavior every driver must prevent him or herself from. And so we have used this opportunity to admonish all drivers that apart from the fact that police is about to deploy red light, cameras to detect those infractions. For now, before then, we have to admonish, because many of the crashes, associated deaths and injuries at these junctions as a result of drivers who run the stop line, the amber, and rushed through and crashed. And in the process, we have been observing a lot of deaths. So among these include motorcycle riders.
That is the real situation. In a minute each, as we wrap this conversation, I'll come back to you for your wrap-up comments, Supo, especially as we proffer solutions. Let's start from the MTTD. What is your plan for the month of June, your plan of action, so to speak, to prevent a repeat of what we saw in May? Very quickly, in a minute.
I think that we have deployed reactive teams. Okay. And on Accra streets and
are there specific areas you're targeting?
Oh, we're targeting those, for example, who are driving, facing oncoming vehicle with what do you call hazards, and also with sirens, unauthorized use of siren and all that, and generally indisciplined motorcycle. And we are looking at almost all roads, particularly roads that receive such infractions, including the airport bypass. We're looking at the Gifford Road. We will be on many other roads that we're beginning to see. And then, of course, since last week, we have been on the N6, particularly between at Insutem. Okay. We have been at the barrier, the new Sutem, the custom barrier, and we have also been at the Palace rest stop, and then Osino, and then Enyinam, and Paradise, Enyinam, and other. Why? Because drivers are manifesting intolerance attitude and driving, facing oncoming vehicles, and driving on the shoulder on the highway. And so we have deployed to our thief, and we are there, and as many as we are arresting, we are pushing them to the courts. Right. Clearly, we have deployed this reactive kind of method. We expect, with the support with the other media partners, and then we're also scaling up our war on indiscipline. Okay. And so a lot are up there for all of us. What is important is that in doing all this, it takes a self-compliant road users to let police have its peace and to deploy safety services.
Yes, I think I'm happy to
in a minute.
Yeah, my good friend, talking about war against indiscipline. That's fantastic. More like reactivating what you did earlier before, and also bringing in cameras. So that will come and complement our efforts. Two things that we are doing. Media engagement under the Arrive Alive is going to go on, and we're even going to scale it up. This time we're going to work with about more than 200 of media stations across the country. So it's going to be massive, massive campaign. Then also, now we have deployed our men. We have recruited about 200 personnel, and we are at lorry parks. And so we are doing what we call pre-departure checks. We are assessing the fitness of drivers before you move out of the station. We are testing the fitness of the vehicle itself, checking everything around the vehicle to pass it before it moves. We are also enforcing the 2-driver long-distance journey policy, which is also working perfectly. And I think that these two things we're doing, together with the support from the police, I think the narrative will change in this particular month.
Let's pray for that in the month of June. Those who joined us for the conversation, Engineer David Adonting, Director of Planning and Programs at the National Road Safety Authority, and Superintendent Alex Obeng, of course, who is Head of Education, Research and Training at the MTTD. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. We take a breather here. When we return, there's more action on the AM show. Do stay.